Hey kids, how's everybody doing today? Nice to see you again. So today I'm going to show you how to make coffee. And I'm actually going to be including another dad, a friend of mine, John. He works for a local roaster here in the Seattle area named called Caffe Darte. And they actually make my favorite coffee. It's called Meaning of Life, Caffe Darte. And we're actually going to be doing, in conjunction with this, we're actually going to be doing a giveaway of 100 bags of Meaning of Life to 100 individuals. You have to enter on my Instagram though, so go there for the details. You get a bag, and you get a bag, and you get a bag. I always wanted to say that, Anyway, so hopefully, 100 bags is a decent amount. Obviously, you can't give a bag to everybody, but at least we'll be able to hit quite a few of you. And so John has been in the coffee industry for about 25 years. I've been friends with him for about 7 years. He's a great guy. He's a dad as well, and his kids are similar in age to mine, a little bit younger, but and yeah, we instantly became friends, and he'll share a little bit about that with you in the video. He's going to actually share how to make drip coffee, but then also how to use a K-cup, how to make coffee with a K-cup, and then also a French press, which is pretty cool. I told John, I said, I think you included so much information, I probably could have cut it up into 3 different videos, but anyway, so he kind of went above and beyond. And then also at the end of this too, when John's done, then I'm going to show you, we actually went on a tour of their place, and just going to show you a couple quick clips of that, where I have the actual beans before they're roasted in my hands, and then all the bags in the background, and then show what it looks like when those beans have been roasted and they come out and there's steam coming out. It's pretty cool. So I'll include that and before we wrap up at the end. But before we do all this, I got a dad joke for you. So the sheriff was going to arrest the coffee bean, and the coffee bean said, "I'm just a bean. On what grounds?" Anyway, here's John.
Hey Rob, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here today. You know how much I love talking about coffee, and I have a passion for it. So to be able to show some of your viewers some tips on how to make great coffee is super important to me, and I'm excited. So thank you so much. You know, kind of a fun story real quick. When we met was years ago, and you and I were doing a coffee tasting. And I remember that, we brought donut holes for the customers, and we brought a bunch of different coffees for them to try. And you and I were waiting as people were coming through the line, and they were testing the coffee. And we kept looking at the donut holes because we were hoping that some would be left over for you and I. Not that we needed them, or I certainly didn't, but we were hoping there'd be a few left over, and there was. And so we had a couple donut holes at the end of the tasting. But what I remember about that day when I first met you is just you were a special person. You are a very special person, and I knew it from that day. We hit it off fairly quickly. I have a couple of kids, my daughter Michaela, my son Spencer, you have children, and we talked about our family and how important they were. We talked about our kids and all their accomplishments, and we were just so proud of them. So I remember that day, and I appreciate you. So anyway, I hope today to share some tips in the coffee business, how to make really good coffee at home. I know some of your viewers have different brewing methods, so I've set up a couple here, and we'll just kind of walk through them. I think the most important thing to remember, as you can tell, we're coming from our training room. I'm with Caffe Darte. We're a roaster, and we have been for over 35 years. This is one of our training and education rooms where we teach people how to not only make traditional brewed coffee, but to do espresso and espresso shots. But we do a lot of training on people when it comes to the brewed side of it. And so I thought today would be a good opportunity to share a few of those things for you. And the most important thing is pick a good roaster. There are a lot of good roasters out there. You might find a local roaster in your area, and everybody does it a little bit different. So find a good roaster, number one. Number two, find a coffee that fits your taste profile. If you've never had coffee before, start off with something light, like a light roast, which is a little more light on your tongue and on your palate, not too dark or offensive to your palate. Then you can go to a kind of a medium roast, which is what our Meaning of Life is. I'll be demonstrating today, and I know, Rob, that's one of your favorites, is our Meaning of Life. And then you can go to a darker one. So find a good roaster, pick what kind of coffee works best for you, and then after that, it's about storing the coffee and using the coffee. So storing the coffee in a sealed, tight air container is what we recommend. Don't put it in the freezer, no refrigerator, just airtight container. Try to use the coffee within, 20 days. I mean, if you use it after 20 days, is it still going to be okay? Most likely it will, but we recommend trying to use it up in 20 days. I think that way you get the best freshness. And then start off with really good fresh water. If you have filtered water, that's the best. We use tap water too every once in a while, so you're fine with that. You'll still get a good taste profile. So let's get into some of the brewing methods for you. Okay, so let's talk about the traditional brewing method, which I think is the most commonly used method at home. I know my mom still uses the Mr. Coffee, and she's in her 80s and she thinks it's the best. So Mr. Coffee, Cuisinart, whatever it might be, these home brewers work really well. So in our business, there's kind of a golden cup rule, and it comes down to a recipe of how much water to use and how many ounces of coffee. So we think the best recipe is about 64 ounces of water with 2 ounces of coffee. Now this machine is a 12 cup, and it not only says it on the decanter, but it says it on the side, so you know exactly where to fill. That decanter is about 58 ounces of water, and that'll work. You're always going to adjust your coffee a little bit to your taste profile, kind of going back to what we talked about earlier. Do you like light coffee or dark coffee? So the first thing you want to make sure is you pick the right filter. I noticed in the store the other day that there's filters that are for 1 to 2 cup or 4 to 6 cup, and you want to make sure that you really get the right one for a 12 cup. So pick the right filter, number one. Make sure you have the right coffee. Meaning of life, this is ground for drip. There are a lot of different grinds that you can get, so if you're ordering it online or picking it up, don't get French press grind or espresso grind. You want to make sure it's grind or ground for drip coffee. That works the best. And then how to measure. I think that's the key. Is at home, I've talked to a lot of people and they say, well, I usually put in 4 tablespoons or 6 tablespoons, and they're not really sure the right amount. So if you're using a tablespoon, you want to scoop in about 10 tablespoons into the filter. And they don't have to be heaping, they can just be leveled off. 10 tablespoons is about the equivalent to 1 cup. So if you don't have a tablespoon, you can find a cup, and if you just put ground coffee in there, level it off, that's the perfect amount of grounds for this amount of water. So let's go ahead and open up this machine. They've got a brew basket, a plastic brew basket inside, so we'll leave that in there. We'll go ahead and put our coffee that's already got our coffee grounds, coffee filter in there as well. Then we're going to pour the water in. And the key with these machines is sometimes if you turn it on too soon and you get called away, the kids are bugging you, you get distracted, it starts to actually heat up. So you want to wait before you turn it on, and you want to get your water in there first. So I'm going to go ahead and put in about the 58 ounces of water. We'll get that poured in there real quick. And again, filtered water if you can find it. That's the best. The reason why I like this machine for me is that you get the best extraction out of it. Because the water's in contact with the grounds for a longer period of time, say 3 to 5 minutes when it's brewing, and you're able to get all of the flavor and all of the profile, kind of saturated in that coffee filter for what I think is the best cup. So we're going to close the lid, we're going to turn this guy on, and it'll start brewing. Okay, so another really popular brewing method is the Keurig, the home Keurig system. And I like these systems. It's super convenient, it's super fast. If you don't want to make a full pot of coffee and it's just you, I think this works out really well. Again, the trick here for me is to pick the right coffee. There are a lot of different K-Cups that you can find out there. I'm going to use, of course, our favorite is our Meaning of Life K-Cup. This is a medium to dark roast. I think it works well in here. But because we're only talking about anywhere from 6 to 12 ounces of water, and if you remember you learned from the last time on the brewed system that it's all about water to coffee ratio. And with this system, you can only use 6 to 12 ounces of water, so you don't get a lot of water, and the water's not in contact with the grounds for very long because this will brew in about 45-50 seconds. The other thing is you can only get so much coffee in this little cup. You can get 11 grams in here. So it may make a good taste profile cup of coffee for you. If you find that whatever you're using is a little too weak, then find a darker K-cup and that might work for you. Now I'm going to use a demo machine here that we use in the hotels. So this only does 8 ounces, but here it makes a ton of different machines all the way from 6 ounces to 12 ounces. They have a water reservoir on the side, so you don't have to fill it up every time. Again, pretty cool system. So let me just demonstrate how this works. You know, take your K-cup on this unit, you go ahead and just open it up by pressing the button. Some you just lift the handle and put our K-cup in there. Close it, and that opens up the lid to the water reservoir. And then I just go ahead and add my 10 ounces. There's a fill line in here so I know exactly where to stop. Tells me where to stop right there. Close the lid and hit the brew button. In about 50 seconds, you'll get a great cup of coffee. Okay, the last brewing method for you guys to try at home is called French press. Now, I know this looks super fancy, and it is. It's kind of cool. This is a French press unit right here. I picked the coolest one that I could find that we had, which is of course the gold one. But they make different types and different sizes. You can have a little 8-cup all the way up to a big French press like this. They're relatively inexpensive, and it's kind of a neat way to serve coffee at home. You know, maybe you're trying to impress somebody, you're having your dad over, you want to make them a really good cup of coffee. You know, this would definitely impress your dad. So let me show you how this works. I've got a tea kettle here that I've brewed the coffee to about 200 degrees. So that's what you want to use, is good hot water in the French press. I've got our ground coffee here, which is our meaning of life, but this is ground for French press, which is much different. It's a much coarser grind because we're just going to put it right into the French press and plunge it, which I'll show you in a minute. So let's get to measuring this out. We'll take our top off the French press here, and good, we have a tablespoon. We're going to use 8 of these scoops for this particular brew. Now our bag actually talks about how many scoops to use per water. Remember we talked about earlier the ratio between coffee and water, so this is really important. So we're at 6 here, we're going to do 7, and then let's get up to number 8. So there's our 8 tablespoons of coffee. We're going to take our hot water, which is ready here. Now this is going to be about 32 ounces of water, which is perfect for 8 tablespoons. And as you pour the water in, you want to really try and get all those grounds saturated as best you can. So that's when you're going to get the best extraction out of this. We'll fill this up. We're just about there. I'm trying to get all the grounds covered in water. If not, I do have a spoon ready. There we go. And I think it's good to take a spoon if you have one and really kind of mix in the grinds, the grounds. I always get confused between grinds and grounds, but it's coffee, so it doesn't matter. It's in the cup. We're good. Get that all saturated in there best we can. Take your plunger, set it on top. Now, don't push down yet. You want to wait about 3 to 4 minutes. Really let that coffee and the water saturate in there for a while. After about 3 to 4 minutes, you want to then plunge your coffee. And that's simply just taking your plunger here, and I think this is so cool. It starts to push the coffee grounds down, and look how beautiful that looks. I mean, that coffee that just rises to the top as the grounds go down. And you want to get that all the way down as far as you can. Gives you a little bit of resistance because you're pushing down those grinds. But the flavor and the body and the aroma is incredible. And you know, I think I'm just going to grab a cup right out of this. And I hope that you guys learned something today about brewing coffee and the techniques for brewing coffee. So enjoy your coffee, and cheers to you all.
Okay, wasn't that cool? Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it was helpful to you. Again, it might have been a little more information than what you needed if you're just trying to figure out how to use a drip coffee maker, but he does kind of go into the little details that some of the finer points of what makes a good cup of coffee. So anyway, thanks for watching, and God bless you.